Okay, so this is going to be your demonstration for a mini project, a minor project that we're going to be doing within Photoshop to focus more on the warping and the distorting that you can do with photos. And there's a lot of different things that are possible here. So I just want to show you some of the tools that we can use and walk you through how to do this project. So the first step for this project, it's all on Google Classroom, is you will have to do an automatic drawing of some kind of animal or a person. It could be a person if you want, but just take away your sight so that the drawing ends up being more part of your subconscious, less thought through and stuff like that. So you will be very honest and you will close your eyes and you will create your drawing of whatever animal it is that you chose. Of course, I chose a cat. Then once you've created that drawing, it definitely should look a little bit wonky. Here is mine. Once you've created that drawing, take a picture of it. Nice, good quality. I do recommend using like a heavy marker or pen so that you can see it nice when we put it into Photoshop. So you'll take a picture of it, and then you'll upload that picture to Google Drive, download it onto your computer, and then put it into Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just create it as a new document. You could create it from the photo if you want. It doesn't really matter. We'll do a default Photoshop size. And mine's actually going to be a portrait, so I'm going to switch that orientation and do that. Okay, so I am going to add in the photo that I created here. So I'm going to keep this background layer, but go ahead and start with a new layer. Place embedded. And bring up my drawing that I already took a picture of. Okay, now obviously I don't need all this extra space, so I can crop it or I can just kind of transform it so it's bigger. It takes up my space here. Remember, you can hold the shift button while you transform to keep the ratio the same so you're not distorting your image. And once it's in the place you like, you're going to click enter and keep it like that. Now, I did a cat, so what I did is I went on Google and I looked for images of cats sitting, and I tried to find one that was at least sort of close to what I drew here, which obviously is not very realistic, but just find something that you don't have to do too much editing to kind of make this process easier for you. So we're going to Photoshop a real image of a cat and match it to this drawing that I created. So you could follow along with me step by step if you want, or you could just watch this whole video and then do your own and kind of come back and get reminders of things if you need that. But I'm just going to walk through the steps that I took to create this project based on this drawing. So I'm going to start with my drawing as a layer here. I'm going to add a new layer for the image of the cat that I'll be working from. And you can use that tool when you're looking for images on Google to make sure it's a large image so that you have nice quality, so that when you're zooming in and using different parts of it, you don't lose that quality and you don't get anything that's pixelated. So there's my image of my cat. Now, the key here is I'm going to keep this image intact because I want to draw different parts of it and use it for different parts of the image. So I'm going to hang on to it, but I'm actually going to just kind of keep it behind areas that I don't really need, so I can keep it back here and just make this invisible whenever I need to draw from it. So we're going to start with the head. I just want to grab a part of the head here, so I'm going to use my lasso tool and my pen and just draw around. I don't even need the ears. I'll do the ears separate. So I'm just drawing around the head area. Okay. Once I have that selected, I'm going to right click and make a new copy. And now that's what I'm going to be working with on top of my drawing. So I can go ahead and make my drawing visible again, and I've got that head on top. And I'm not going to delete that first layer because I'm going to use that for other things too. So I'm keeping that around, but it's just sort of in the background. Now I want to try and match this head to the circle that I drew. And in order to do that, I want to make this a little bit more transparent so I can see the circle through it. Okay. And then I'm going to use the warp tool. So once you have your image selected, you could go to transform by clicking edit and then transform and then get to warp that way. Or if you select your image and click Control T, that brings up the transformation panel, and then you can right click and get to warp that way. What this is going to do is put little sections up here. I like to have a grid on top. It kind of helps me see what I'm doing. So you can click that and make that visible if you need to. And then I'm just going to drag each of these little grids and bring this image into the circle that I created here. And that's pretty good. That matches the circle as much as I want to. So actually my face is in front of it, but there's a little check mark back here that you will click to say that you're good. So look for the check mark behind my face in the Photoshop screen. Okay, so that's all I want. I can bring that opacity back up. And then I can get rid of these edges using a layer mask, same way we did before. Brush tool, make sure black is selected, and that opacity should be 100. Okay, and then I can just get rid of anything that's not the little cat face. All right, now as far as the rest of the face goes, I drew his face kind of all the way over here, right, not in the center. So I actually want to stretch that over there somehow, and to make that a little easier on myself, I think it'll be better to get rid of the eyes and the nose that are currently on this picture here, and I can do that by clicking my layer, making sure that is selected, and then going to my spot healing tool. And what this does is, if you imagine, like, if you're doing Photoshop on a face and you have like a little pimple that you want to get rid of, you click it, and then the area of the skin around the area that you click kind of patches in that section. So what I'm going to do is do that with the eyes and just patch that in with the fur that's around it. Looks kind of creepy there, but that's what we're doing. So it's not perfect. Sometimes you can see those little curves that are happening there, and I should be able to turn that hardness down to make it a little softer around those curves. But that at least helps me get a cat face without a face. And I'm gonna distort some of that stuff later as well, and that'll help me out. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab some more of the face from my original picture here. So I'm gonna bring that back on top so I can see it. And I just wanna grab the face part this time. So lasso tool, new layer, and then I'm gonna drag my original picture back. Okay, so now I've got this face, and I can try my best to line it up with my drawing. Might help to make this layer invisible for a second while I work. Remember, Control T to transform. I think the face needs to be a little bit smaller. And then you have a few different options here. So with something like a face, I could cut out like the individual eyes and place the eyes where I need to go in different layers, or I could try and warp this to the face that I've created. What you do doesn't really matter. It's more a matter of preference. So I'm going to try and warp this and see if I can get it close to the lines that I created here. So Control T, right click, and then warp. I want my grid to show up. If you click the lines in between the grid, sometimes it does this curling thing, which can be useful. But if you didn't mean to click that, you can always undo by clicking Control Z. There we go. Got the nose all the way up here. It's gonna get weird. Okay, I'm gonna call that close enough. So a little check button, and I can bring my opacity back up. If you noticed, make that invisible real quick. My smile is definitely more strange than what this cat smile is. So I'm going to go ahead and distort that a little bit more to match those lines. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little more transparent so I can see through it. And then I'm going to click Filter, Liquify. So this is a good way, just click OK. This is a good way to make things bigger, make things smaller, fit it more to your drawing, or to just kind of stretch areas out. So I just want to stretch the mouth to make it look more like the drawing that I created. So I'm going to use this forward warp tool, which just kind of pushes areas. I want it to be kind of small, but I'm just going to push that smile shape. Push my nose to match a little bit more, push the cheeks down. And then if my eyes need to change at all, I can try and fix those up as well. I think we should be good. Try that. Okay, so it's not the best job in the world. Let me actually go back into my liquify filter here and see if I can fix what just happened. So I think it helps to have the opacity up when I need it to be up in order to get the right effect, because it was kind of hard to see when it was too small there. So I'm going to push these back. I can make things bigger. So let's say I'll make those cheeks a little bigger. Try and push that nose in. Okay, that's a little better. We're just going to work with it. So now I've got my cat head over there and the face over there, and I want to try and connect these somehow. Getting a little tricky there, I know. But what I'm going to do is try and distort this head into the face a little bit more, and then I'm going to blend it by doing another layer mask. So let's start with that distorting. We're going to do that liquefying thing just like I did with the face. So make sure that this layer is selected, and then filter and liquefy. And we're zooming in here, and okay, so I'm just going to kind of try and stretch this face into the other face. Okay, so I'm just going to pull over here, stretch it out. I'm going to try and make those stripes go this way a little bit more. Okay, so I think I'm getting more of this weird warped effect, which is what I wanted. The face looks to be connected, at least sort of, to the head. Go ahead and bring some of this all the way over here. And then I can kind of use that cheek if I need it. Okay. All right, so now let me try and mask this in a little bit better. So I'm going to try and make some of this a little bit more visible. So I'm going to go back and paint in some areas that might have been lost to my layer mask. Yeah. Help those kind of become a little bit more visible over here. Okay, and now I'm going to create a layer mask for the face. Switch back to black and blend it in. Okay, if I really wanted to keep going with this weird warped effect, I could go back to liquefy on the face and kind of stretch out parts of the head over there. I'm just going to keep it as it is for now because I think I'm happy enough with it. That is my cat with the very strange distorted face. So that's the face. Now I'll do the ears, and I think the rest of this process will be a lot quicker here. So you're basically going to do the same process where you take your source picture and you bring it up, and then you click on whatever part of it that you want to work on. You can lasso tool. So I just want to work on this ear. Make a new layer. Bring my picture back. Set up my layer where it goes. For this one, I might want to keep this part of the head invisible while I set it up because it kind of goes in front. Okay, I'm just going to do the ears quickly here. I don't think you need my explanation for it because it's a lot of the same tools that we've done before, so just bear with me and I'm going to get that done quickly. All right, ears and face are done. Now let's go ahead and do the body. So if you notice in my picture, I've only got one leg here, so I'm only going to worry about one leg as I lasso tool the body. Actually, I'm going to do the legs separate, so I'm just going to ignore them entirely. All right, and let's go ahead and warp. Okay, that is close enough. I'm actually going to bring my body down below the face so that it can go behind. Now I'm going to do the leg in basically the same way. Okay, last step is the tail, and this one's where it gets a little bit weird because my cattail here is very different from the drawing that I created. So I'm going to do a few things to kind of try my best at getting it to work. Just need to copy the tail. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to try and curl the tail to kind of match the image that I have here. So I'm going to turn it down so I can see my lines a little bit. Okay, and then I'm actually going to use something called the puppet warp tool. If you think of the way that puppets' arms work, they have like specific joints and then they can bend at those joints. So that's the same thing with the puppet warp tool, is you're creating joints on your image and then you're bending them from those joints. Select my layer, edit, puppet warp. All right, so now all of these grids are showing up and it's kind of weird, but this is basically telling you where you can put your joints for the image. So I want just kind of like an elbow joint, so I'm gonna secure it down here and create a joint there. I want to bend it around here, and then I'm gonna create another joint at the top that I can pull it from. So I've just created these 3 points. Now I can pull one of the points when I have that arrow and bend it kind of like a puppet. So I'm going to match it to this curve that I created here. Good. And that's the beginning of my tail. Okay, that's pretty good. I can do my layer masking and get rid of the extra areas, but I still need more of the tail. So what I'm actually going to do is copy this layer and make the exact same thing. So Control C, Control V. And then I'm going to transform this, Control T, and flip it so it's going the other way. And line it up with that curve there. So I'm going to connect the tails eventually, but I do want to curl that a little bit more. Okay, so now I can layer mask these. All right, so that is basically it. That's all I needed. So now I can make my original pictures invisible here and just export my image as I have it in Photoshop. All right, so there are my 2 drawings next to each other, the one I did blind and then the one I created from Photoshop. So this is what you'll be doing for your minor project. It should be pretty simple. I don't expect you guys to use anything other than the warp tool, maybe the puppet warp tool, the skewing tool, bloating tool, stuff like that. It's just basic kind of how to warp and also rearrange a picture into one image. So this shouldn't take too long. It should be pretty minor. You don't really have to do any image adjustments on it if you don't want to. No shadows or brightness or anything like that, so don't worry about that. Just mostly using the warp tool, and then you are done. So that's it. Turn that in for your minor project.